Costco just dropped their quarterly earnings report. As you know, Costco has been one of my favorite stocks, one of my favorite companies in general to be invested in. Turns out they beat expectations, but the stock price still went down. What's the deal? Is Costco still a buy? Should we be thinking about them going forward into the long term? A couple of months ago in July, I did a big kind of series of analyses on Target and Walmart and Costco, kind of comparing the differences, comparing the similarities, comparing their strengths and weaknesses. And one of the things I was sharing in the video is that I just really love Costco, like personally as a consumer going there, but also I know people who've worked there before. They loved working there and they felt really well taken care of. But also as an investor, I've loved Costco and I've enjoyed good results over the last few years as well. Taking a look at the 2-year price chart, we see pretty solid gains over the last couple of years. Zooming into the 6-month chart, we see, as most companies, dropped pretty hard in March, but since then have been slowly marching back up. They hit a high of about 358 a few weeks ago, and now they've settled back down to 340. But right after they dropped their earnings, the stock dropped about 10 bucks. So I was really intrigued, like, did they miss expectations? Did they jack up really badly or something like that? So I took a look into it and wanted to share the results with you. But first, before we go into that, I wanted to share a little bit of the information that I shared in the last video and then some. If you're not really familiar with Costco, a lot of you guys are new subscribers or new viewers. Costco has a really special business model, basically primarily based on the membership model. And basically you need to pay like 40 or 50 or 60 bucks per year to be a member, and then you can go in, buy stuff in bulk. It ends up being much cheaper per unit than normal stores. And you also get access to stuff like really cheap hot dogs in the food court or rotisserie chicken, which is really good. They also offer really cheap gas at many of their branches, and it seems like an increasing number of Costco's are offering gasoline. Apparently gasoline makes up about 10% of their overall revenues. But one of the interesting things we see is that the renewal rates don't really decrease even as the membership price goes up over the years. In the US and Canada, renewal rates are generally around 91%, and internationally around 88%. So most people who go to Costco and eventually get a membership love it so much that they're willing to just keep paying continually increasing membership fees, and they just keep going, they just keep shopping, they just keep loving it. And I'm one of those people as well. Interestingly, even though they do sell so much product and people go there and fill up pallets of goods before checking out, the membership income basically makes up about 70% of their EBIT. EBIT being earnings before interest and taxes. So basically, a lot of the money the company makes works out to be from those membership fees, and therefore they don't need to be charging premiums on all the goods that they're selling. They can sell them closer to cost. Another advantage of this business model, especially when paired with Costco specific special credit cards that they offer, is that it's really easy to monitor every single customer's shopping habits. And similarly to how Amazon puts cookies in the browser that basically are monitoring what you're looking at, monitoring what you're buying, examining your habits over the years, they can kind of recommend certain types of things. In a similar way, Costco knows, okay, our average buyer is coming in here this often, they're spending this much. A lot of them are groceries, much more than things like, furniture or sporting goods or clothing or things like that. I think about 53% of the sales are food-related products, but basically when you can monitor clients' specific behaviors, it's really easy to tailor or to know, like, how can we get more sales in this kind of department? Or, there are a lot of people who are kind of looking for these kinds of goods, or these kinds of goods sell really well as soon as we get them, or things like that. So you can kind of tailor offerings, and this also overflows especially into international markets as they're learning different behavior of different countries, as well as like how quickly should we be expanding and adding new warehouses in new cities or in new countries. So these are a few of the strengths that Costco has that typical retailers might not have. And this is becoming increasingly more important as e-commerce also grows. Another interesting strength that Costco has is that they offer a much narrower selection of goods. Typically, competitors like Walmart have 140,000 different products filling their stores. You can go in there, and if you bought one of everything, you would have 140,000 different things. On the flip side, Costco generally only offers about 3,700 products. So their margin and their revenue per product is much higher, but this also gives them a really good relationship with their suppliers and also more leverage in negotiating pricing and terms with suppliers as well. Typically, Costco is regarded as being very caring of supplier relationships and also employee relationships. And they offer like hazard pay for working during pandemic times like they are right now. We'll see in a minute when we look more into the finances that hazard pay bump in expenses has also impacted their bottom line, but that also goes to show that they take really good care of their employees. They currently have about 795 warehouses around the country. Here's a quick breakdown of some of the store counts. US and Puerto Rico, 552, Canada, 101, Mexico, 39, UK, 29, Japan, 27. We have a new one opening up on the other side of our town coming up here in a couple months here in Japan, which we're excited about. Korea, 16, Taiwan, 13, Australia, 12, Spain, 3, Iceland, France, and China, 1 each. I'd be interested to see, especially in countries like China, if those numbers can start to grow. One of the really interesting things with setting up and managing a company like Costco is that typically the older a warehouse gets, the more profitable it becomes. So if you think about a new gym, imagine a brand new gym just opens up down the street from you. They have no members, therefore they're making no money. But the number of members over the years, as long as they're doing a good job, hopefully will continue to grow and grow and grow. Therefore, more profits, more revenues, more growth. And then when they open up another one on the other side of town, they already kind of have a reputation. Some of those members might switch over to that one because it's closer to them, but there's also a greater number of people talking about that business, and therefore it's easier to fill that second warehouse. So I think we're seeing that here in Japan with Costco. When it first opened, like I could go there any time of day and there would be nobody in line. Like I would just fill up my cart and immediately be at the cash register. Now a lot of times when I go there, I have to wait kind of 5 or 8 minutes before getting to the cash register. As a result, they're gonna be opening up a new one closer to us. Probably a bunch of the current members that are driving all the way to the south side of town are gonna be switching to that one, and now these can both grow. And so the income per store generally increases over the years. And similarly, the network effect starts to come into play. So as you know, Costco has a bunch of Kirkland signature products, which make up 25% of their sales. And these are coming, a lot of these are coming from America to be sold in Asia or different parts of the world, Europe. Like China only has one warehouse right now. They're spending an entire, probably loads and loads of containers on a ship, or maybe an entire ship, regularly to go and supply that one warehouse. But if you added 1 or 10 more, the amount of work to send that ship over here and deal with all the logistics is way less per warehouse. And so growing will become easier, especially in the international markets. It seems like Canada and the US are probably pretty saturated. We're going to be seeing diminishing returns by adding new warehouses. A lot of the big metro areas already have a bunch of warehouses, and so it'll be a big challenge on Costco's plate to start stepping it up in other parts of the world. But I think they're up to the challenge, and from what I'm seeing here in Japan, they're doing a really good job so far. Let's take a look at some of the quarterly and yearly results that they just released. We did see a bump in expenses associated with hazard pay, making their employees work in dangerous conditions. And we also saw a big expense bump in disinfecting and cleaning the shops. And so one of the things here was like, when we would go to Costco, we park on the roof, so we use the elevator, but they had an employee there the entire day, actually 2 employees there the entire day, just like sanitizing the buttons for the elevator or just cleaning the elevator after every single person got out. And all of these are extra expenses for the company. So fortunately, the boost in sales more than covered those extra expenses, but let's take a look at some of the numbers. Annual sales jumped 9.3% to 163 billion. So that's the 2020 year compared to the 2019 year. Quarterly sales, the quarter that just finished, jumped 12.5% to 52.28 billion. So comparing this last whole year, remember I've mentioned a few times, companies don't all start on January 1st. So their fiscal year oftentimes will be at a weird part of the year. So sometimes they'll say the 4th quarter just finished, even though it's June or something like that. That's basically that company's accounting cycle. So this last entire year, 52 weeks for Costco, was up 9.3% over the year before that. And basically 6 months of this year has been in pandemic. I mentioned in the last video, there was a big kind of like press backlash because of these huge lines, and people are like, oh, I don't want to wait to have to go into Costco or whatever. But basically it turns out that even with the space restrictions and limiting the number of people going into the warehouses, sales are still up. People are still shopping there. Even with the onslaught of Amazon and growing e-commerce threats from Walmart Plus and things like that, sales are still up. Costco is still doing it, man. They're still doing real well. Check it out here. They have a chart they put up in their earnings report. The second column there was 16 weeks adjusted star, means that they're correcting for changes in gasoline prices as well as foreign exchange. So because those things are always changing, you might produce something in America expecting that it sells in Japan for 1,000 yen, but by the time it gets there, it only gets 900 yen because of the exchange rate or things like that. So that's what that adjusted column is. So we have 16-week periods and then we have 52-week periods. And this is showing the growth of each of these sectors. So in the US, the last quarter growth was 13.6% versus the whole year of 9.2%. The last quarter adjusted was almost up 20%. It says 18.8% growth in the international segment. And then jumping down to e-commerce, growth of like 90% basically across the board, which is really, really exciting because we're seeing the stores being filled, but we're also seeing e-commerce going up and up and up. And Costco has typically been one of those companies where it's like, you just have to go there to pick the stuff up. But now their online offerings are getting so good. They're figuring out how to ship huge toilet paper packages and all these other huge things that aren't typically really easy to ship. And they're getting really good at it. And more people are starting to use it. And this works out to be really good for the bottom line as well. Going into the net income numbers, the report mentions that fourth quarter net income was $1.389 billion or $3.13 per diluted share. That's compared to last year's net income in the fourth quarter of $1.097 billion and $2.47 per diluted share. Net income for the whole year worked out to be about $4 billion or $9.02 per diluted share, compared to $3.66 billion or $8.26 in the previous year. So for the entire year period compared to the entire year before, they're up almost 400 million bucks in sales, despite everything that's going on, despite retail in a large part transitioning to being more online. Just goes to show you that Costco has it figured out. Costco has really loyal customers, and Costco, I think, is going to be continuing to do well and make money and grow and profit and therefore have a growing stock price growing into the future as well. Another interesting thing that we're seeing with Costco shoppers is that they're starting to spend more at Costco than in other places. And I think one of the reasons is because you can't travel, you can't be spending money on hotels or airline tickets or things like that, but people are probably also going to be spending more money to make their house more comfortable, to maybe set up an office in their house, maybe get some exercise equipment, maybe make their garden nicer so they can hang out there, or things like that. We're seeing all of these departments growing inside Costco. And so they've effectively demonstrated like Amazon doesn't affect us, even though they're retail. So it's tempting to look at Amazon's numbers and be like, they're taking over the world, it's all over. But Costco has proven that they're going to keep growing and their customers are really loyal and they're going to be increasing revenues in the coming years as well. So I think even though we have slightly elevated PE ratios and things like that, we still are seeing very low debt. There's like zero worry on the horizon for debt or anything like that. I think it's one of those stocks where even if the market collapsed big time, it's not going to drop like 50% or 30% in one day like a lot of these high-flying tech stocks. So it's something to consider to bring in some stability into your portfolio. So one of the interesting dynamics that we have to deal with right now is that there's this huge influx of retail investors coming into the market. Stock prices are going like basically really high, in a lot of cases kind of unmeritedly high, if that is English, I don't know. And we see higher PE ratios than ever before. We're seeing really crazy kind of price per sales ratios as well. And I think in general, especially younger investors tend to shy away from retail and think, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Tesla, these kinds of stocks. And yes, these kinds of stocks have done real well, but my encouragement, my challenge for you is to consider maybe adding something like Costco to your portfolio. In a video a couple weeks ago, I mentioned how it's pretty safe to expect things to settle down in the broader market in general, especially if there is a Biden election coming up in November. Not telling you who to vote for, that's probably just what's gonna happen if you look at the history of things. But one of the things we've seen with Costco is that it's way less volatile than a lot of these tech stocks that are really kind of expensive for what you're getting. Yes, with Costco, we are seeing a PE of like 40. We are seeing a forward PE of like 35, 36, I think it is. While Costco's typically traded at a forward PE of like 26 or 28. So yeah, the evaluation is a little bit richer than typical. Additionally, we are seeing a small dividend, a dividend payout ratio of only 0.8%. So it's not something to get super excited about, but it is something to consider. This is one of those stocks where, just grab a couple every quarter or every month. And over the years, it's going to be growing slowly. The dividend's going to be growing or reinvesting for you automatically. And it's just going to be one of those real solid companies. And even when the market tanks, it's not going to, lose 50% of its value because they have physical goods and they have warehouses full of stuff sitting around that people are going to need to buy to survive. It's a little bit different than like something entertainment based or something tech based or a lot of the techie companies. We are looking at a 52-week range of kind of like 270-ish to like 360-ish. We're up around 340, so we're near the high right now, even after settling down after that earnings report. My verdict, my thought on the stock still stands. If you are in the mindset of just kind of grabbing one here and there, over the months, over the years, you're gonna do really well. And you're not really gonna have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I lost 10 bucks. Just kind of dollar cost average in and just hold it forever. Costco is like rock solid. It's gonna keep growing for you. On the flip side though, if you're somebody who's okay with a bunch of risk, you're not gonna be seeing, the stock price go from 360 to 720 in a month, like you can with some of these other stocks like Tesla or something like that. All that to say, Costco is one of those ones that can bring some solidity and foundation and strength to the volatility of your portfolio. And I really recommend it for that. It's not like a monstrous position in my portfolio. I just really love it because it's one of those companies I love. I love going there. It's gonna be there forever and it's gonna keep growing. I think I'm just gonna keep adding little by little over the months. And with their current stock price around 340, I think we're not that far off of the fair value of the kind of growth that we can expect from them in the future, especially as e-commerce and international are growing really, really well. And we're seeing those 88% customer retention rates and things like that. I think with the fields being ripe for their growth in Europe and Asia, there's a lot to look forward to going into the future. And so personally, I'm gonna keep doing it, man. I'm just gonna keep grabbing a Costco stock here and there. I'm really interested to hearing your thoughts. I'm really interested to hear how this fits into your own portfolio. I know there are a lot of YouTube channels out there for you to watch, for you to choose from. So I thank you very much for taking the time to join us all the way till the end in this video. Looking forward to hearing more from you guys in the comments section or even over on our subreddit. Please leave a comment, leave a like, leave a sub, hit that bell if you have a moment. Thank you guys very much for your time. I love you and have a great one.